This was the evening before launch, and you can see it, we couldn't ask for better weather. Once the winds calmed down on the 21st, the 22nd turned out to be a spectacular night to go fly, with albeit an ungodly hour to lift off at 3:13 in the morning. Here we are walking out of the crew quarters, and I was surprised. You may have seen me jerk my hand to the side with surprise as I saw a member of our training team standing there smiling at us. So we had a lot of support from Johnson down there for the launch. I don't care how many times you sit on top of this thing, these few seconds that you're witnessing here are something that you can never really be fully prepared for. The power of the Space Shuttle main engines as they throttle up on the pad in those final 6 seconds, and that feeling in your heart, the bottom of your heart, that you know good and well you're going someplace in a hurry here momentarily, is one that will be always part of my memory. I've never experienced a night launch, and as you can see from the liftoff, it's incredibly bright. As we cleared the tower, I watched the tower go by. It was like daytime looking out the left window. And during the later stages of ascent, I got to witness, post-solid rocket motor separation here, the experience of seeing out the front window of the orbiter pulsating lights from the main engines in the rear. So you are really kind of in a little glow there, a little lighted glow as you proceed uphill toward main engine cutoff, 8.5 minutes after liftoff.
Okay, and you can see us opening the payload bay doors here, and this is sped up a bit, by the way, so it doesn't take so long in the film, but that's always a relief to get on orbit, get a go to stay on orbit and open the doors. The next morning on flight day 2, after going through the internal airlock and down the tunnel, we got to the hatch for the space hab, and here Ron and I are opening that on our first real morning on orbit, our second day, to get ready to open up the hab and activate it and start operations back there. And this was a very busy place during the mission. As we float into it here, you can see that there was a lot of stowage back here. There's some new soft stowage bags up on the wall, first time they've ever flown. Those were developed for a lot of the equipment that we had to transfer to Mir. You just saw the gyrodyne on the right side, and this panning view shows the biorack and the glove box. So between the biorack and all the transfer operations back here that went on while we were docked, it was a busy place. And back up on the flight deck, Rick is taking a look at the camera mounted up there. That's our electronic camera for KidSat. We left it in the window during the undocked times. It took digitized images of the Earth and made them available to the students on the ground who were controlling the camera.
This is a view of Florida from KidSat, and I want to emphasize that we really began the rendezvous portion of this mission right from launch as we launched into a lower catch-up orbit on Mir. And as we prepared on flight day 2, our particular role in the rendezvous, and got closer and closer to Mir. But we didn't really get the good video, of course, until we got within 1,000 feet or so. This is looking out the ODS center line up at the Mir as we're approaching from underneath. This is the Mir view. What they saw as they were looking down at the Space Shuttle Atlantis passing over the Earth. We included a couple of views of the crew activities on the flight deck. Chili at the aft station flying the vehicle, Rich assisting him, and I was bobbing in and out of the field of view there, working the computers and assisting in my particular role. This is a view of the Mir space station as we passed from across the terminator, from sunlit portion of the planet to the backside. And it was very interesting to see that with the running lights, Mir was very visible, and it was quite bright even on the dark side of the planet. Well, as this process continued of the rendezvous and approach up the R-bar, got closer and closer to Mir, and again, this was sped up too, and part of that intent was to make it flow quicker in the movie, but an added side benefit is it makes the commander look even better because it looks like it's really going fast. But Chili just did a phenomenal job flying the space shuttle up to the Mir, and you can see this is the end game here. This is where it all comes together, and hitting those critical docking parameters. The target, of course, is shown on the right on this split screen image. We really did get that jostle as we made contact and had the post-contact thrusting firing. And then I must confess to a little bit of relief in the cockpit once we reached that milestone. There, Chili's being congratulated by Rich, and it's on to docked activities. Rich.
We're given a panorama of the Mir complex, starting with the docking module here, and now you're looking through the aft cockpit. I'll refer back to the target you just saw. We confirmed after we docked that no flyout was required. Thank you, Melise. But it's a beautiful, this Mir complex is really large, and I have memories of standing back in the ODS, looking up through the tunnel and thinking that it was at least 300 feet up to the Mir complex. Here's a view of the initial hatch opening from the Russian side, of course. And you're going to see a couple happy faces here between Yuri Anafarenko and Kevin Chilton. Tremendous relief once you get there and you join up and realize that it's an excellent place to be. There's some good work going on up there, and felt like home for Shannon already. Neither one of those guys were happy. And of course, Shannon, she felt at home the minute she got there, and they put her right to work. She was one of the experts in the transfer activities, and it's no small part due to the preparation we had here. And here we're getting ready for the welcoming ceremony. One of the official PAO acts, due to a small miscoordination, we had the flags in the wrong location. So you're going to see Yuri Ustashev bringing the American flag into the docking module base, or not the docking module, but the base block for the welcome ceremony. And then we're going to pass some gifts that we took up to them. What you'll see is some of the personal items that we gave to our Russian crewmates. They both have a love for children and the future of space exploration. So some of the gifts that we gave them were space books for their children. And it brought tears to their eyes. And here you see the gift exchange. Some of the books bought right here in Space Center Houston.
Well, I think I need to pick up here, right, with transport. Is it you, Ron?
I think I'll do that. There's Rich and Rick taking off a docking ring from a Gyrodyne. We brought up a new one and brought back a used one. We also transferred nearly 1,500 pounds of water. This is a byproduct of the shuttle's power system. So we removed iodine from our system and supplied minerals and biocide, and then transferred these water bags to the Mir space station. This is going through the shuttle side. There's some empty food containers which we returned to Earth from the Mir station. And finally working our way to the docking module. There's temporary stowage in the white mesh bags of food containers containing many of the supplies that will help Shannon and Yuri in the coming months. We transferred nearly 2 tons of science hardware over and nearly 1 ton back. This is a Kurs system used for navigation on the approach and docking for the Russian system that will be brought back and refurbished. We also needed to keep track of the items that went over to Mir and those that we're returning back to Earth. So Chile and I are making sure that we have all of the items in our inventory management system in order. The blue box on the left-hand side is a refrigerator freezer in which we brought back urine, blood, and saliva samples. The glove box in which Linda is working is where we carried on some of the technology development as well as fundamental biology for a joint effort between the U.S. and several European countries. Here are lentil seeds, and the investigation here is for statocyte polarity. We had several experiments in biology. The middeck is where we had lunch with the Mir 21 crew on dock day. We went over for dinner in the base block of Mir to enjoy Russian food. Each night, if we had a chance, we sent mail messages by way of a laptop computer, and you see Shannon doing just that, back to her family. On 3 separate days, we saw the comet. Many of you may have seen it here, Hyakutake, in which it was very bright, and Rich was the first to notice that, and on subsequent days, we kept track of the comet. Now the EVA activities. Think, Linda?
Well, Ron is helping Rich and I get suited up here in the airlock. We're getting pretty close to getting to our pre-brief timeline, and following that, we get ready to go out the hatch. We had a lot of room inside because we had an airlock and a docking adapter, and came out of the hatch on the docking adapter. Our first job was to install some clamps on the handrails to deploy the experiment packages later, and then our task was to move to a camera to remove it on the docking module, and this was used on STS-74 when they docked with Mir, and then when they left the docking module there, the camera was left there also, so one of our tasks was to remove it and bring it back to Earth. And I took some of the smaller items back, and here you see Rich, he's translating with the camera itself, which is rather large, and he was being very careful of that as he shepherded it back to the tunnel adapter where he stowed it temporarily back inside till we were finished with the EVA.
Here you see Linda and myself removing one of the 4 meat containers for installation onto some clamps on the docking module. We tested out some new tools and equipment for use on the ultimate International Space Station, the rigid tether and the multiple use tether, which we use to transport the MEEPs to their work site and install them into the clamps. Here you're going to see one of those activities. And then one of the funnest things that Linda and I had to do were the deployment of the MEEPs, and you're going to see that here. It's so much easier to do up there. You just give it a little flick and it flies around. And I'm sure that this is real time instead of sped up.
Yeah.
But tremendously finely designed hardware that worked well in flight, and we can learn a lot from the folks at Langley and our own engineering directorate here that helped design the hardware for this particular EVA. It all worked well, and we deployed, this one here is MEEP number 4, I believe. The MEEP experiments are orbital debris sensors and passive samplers.
Well, this is my cue for my second come in. After really a whirlwind and flurry of activity over several days, we were all very sad to get ready to depart the Mir space station. This is the farewell ceremony, and I think I can speak for the rest of the crew. Certainly for me, it was the most emotion-filled moment that I'd had in orbit in 2 missions. Of course, saying goodbye to Shannon, there's Chile giving her a hug and wishing her well for her long stay up there until STS-79 goes back to pick her up. On undock day, we, again, were very busy on that day, similarly to the docking day. We prepared, configuration-wise, this orbiter and Mir complex to separate, and very shortly here we'll see that separation sequence and leading into the fly-around. This is Chile waving goodbye to his buddies over there, the Mir-21 crew, including Shannon. The Russians were very kind to ship down this video, which then came from SOUP to MCC and enabled us to put it in our crew movie in a very timely fashion. Separation here, again, sped up. We were, as I mentioned before, very sad to leave and wished we could have stayed longer and been up there with our friends. The initial separation burn, a couple of low Z pulses out to get going and establish the initial opening rate. And as we continued to fly out, we assumed a range of 450 to 550 feet targeted to conduct this fly around of the Mir, which I was privileged to fly, and it's been, for me, one of the most professionally rewarding things I've ever done. But at the same time, in the background of my mind, also a very emotionally charged event. This video will share some of what we saw from on orbit, which was just absolutely outstanding and flabbergasting, really, to see this orbiting complex out our windows, and here in this particular case to see video shot from the Mir of America's greatest technology achievement ever, a space shuttle in orbit doing what it does best. This is a view of the Mir space station over the Great Barrier Reef right after we gave the KU antenna to COM to send TV down. This is the first picture that came down to the ground, and this particular view is as the Mir passes through the horizon, approaching the terminator, and no, it is not a model. We saw it with our own eyes, and that's what it was, and it was outstandingly beautiful with the backlit view, and something that I will always treasure in my mind.
Well, it's coming home time now, and Ron did a bang-up job shooting these scenes. That little camcorder that he holds, there's a self-shot on the way down, starts weighing 0 at the start of reentry, and then it starts feeling like it weighs a ton on the way down. So he did a great job shooting this. This is out the overhead windows. We're coming in through the reentry, and you can see the plasma trail behind the orbiter there. It pulsates like that and literally lights the cockpit up with flashes as you come down. Out the front window, you just get a nice steady pink and orangish glow as you go through the maximum heating. And here we are in a roll reversal, one of 3 that we did as we lined up for our approach at Edwards Air Force Base. Rather unique long-range shot here where you can actually see the RCS jets firing in the tail of the shuttle as we decelerated through around Mach 2, approaching Edwards to help keep the nose pointed forward. And I logged a night landing on this one because officially the sun hadn't come up. But it sure was a pretty time of day to land. It was just, the xenons were on, but you really didn't need them. You could see the ground just fine, and there wasn't hardly a breath of wind in the air. It was real calm, smooth skies. And it just, you knew what you were flying. The space shuttle was responding just so beautifully. It really flew marvelously and was a joy to bring in for a landing. Rick, go ahead and punched out the landing gear for us on time, and then the drag chute and the timing was just right on that, and cushioned the nose slap down as we came rolling down the runway for a stop. And I think I'll quote Andy Allen from STS 75, there's no better feeling than that call wheel stop, particularly when you've done your job, you've done the best you can, and now it's over and it's time to turn the vehicle over to the folks at Kennedy to get it ready to start back through the same process all over again to go up and retrieve Shannon on STS 79. If I look a little confused here at the end, I was doing a nose count and I came up one short during the walk around. But I was assured that was the right answer. So everybody felt terrific after the flight, and it was certainly good to get back home to family and friends and to you all back here in Houston.